Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Chris Turner hosting the D1A Weekly Chat, formerly known as the Up and Under podcast. Here I have two really cool guests. I have the lead coach for Fordham University, Phil Terrigno, and their captain, Charlie White. Boys, how are you doing? And kind of explain a little bit to the audience where you are right now.
Yeah, Chris, thanks very much for having us on. It's a pleasure to join you, and we appreciate all your efforts to grow the game and highlight what's happening in the collegiate space as well. So we're on tour in Ireland. I've been here myself, the coaching staff, and Charlie and the rest of his teammates for about a week, and we have a couple days left. Played 3 fixtures in Ireland, traveled to the different provinces, had the opportunity to work with some top coaches and players, attend a Pro 14 match, try to do our process of getting better and improving, but in a Tier 1 nation and in that setting, which is pretty cool.
Definitely. And I know not many clubs get this opportunity to go over not only just to Ireland, but anywhere outside the United States and play different competition. First off, what kind of motivated or incentivized the club to do an international trip specifically to Ireland?
Well, we discussed it amongst players whether we want to go to Argentina, Bermuda. Well, we came to the destination of Ireland, and a lot of the guys are excited about the whole rugby culture and all the Irish rugby, and it's great around here. It really is.
So what really differentiated between like a potential Argentina and Ireland? Was it more better weather? Was it the competition? Like, was it plane rides? Like, what really differentiated and made that decision?
Well, it was the pulling factor that our old captain, Fermin Moraes, was he's from Argentina, so he wanted to go back, visit his old club, a little bit of nostalgia factor.
Gotcha. That'd been really cool to go do that and, go catch up with all of his friends, but also really glad that you guys were able to hone in on Ireland and really take advantage of what's been going on there. So to kind of kick it off to the next question, you had mentioned that you've already played 3 matchups. What's your guys' record like? How's the competition over there? Kind of to talk a little bit about that.
So 2-0 so far on tour. We played U20 sides from a Thai RFC. Definitely a fist pump, well-deserved for the guys in their efforts. So 2-0 so far. We've defeated the U20s from a Thai RFC and Galwegians RFC, which is a pretty prominent club in Galway. We'll play again later this week. We'll play the U20s from Highfield RFC, so that'll be our third and final fixture on tour. I think the level is definitely appropriate for where we are as a D1A team. Now, if we had scaled up the age of competition a bit, like let's say the 21s or 23s, or even the thirds or second sides from senior men's teams, of which there are a lot in Ireland, we probably would have been outmatched, to put it plainly, just based on the level of experience and the quality and repetition of play. So I think that level is hopefully for the future. Whereas playing the U20s of really good clubs gave us a bit of the physicality that we could cope with, but players that are good enough and old enough to test certain ways of how we play the game and kind of exposing our weaknesses as well. So those matches have been really difficult. We have not at all won them easily. They've certainly been challenging.
Definitely. And I do not, along with all the rest of the audience, probably does not doubt that for one second. I mean, facing off any Irish club, I'm starting to get sweating bullets myself over here just thinking about it. But no, I mean, kudos to Fordham out there. I mean, taking that risk, stepping outside of your comfort zone and playing those elite level competition, no matter if they are U20 or not, definitely hat off to the club and you guys in achieving that. But Charlie, since you've been the one on the field, what's been the competition like compared to the rest of the Liberty or other D1A competition?
It's very different. I only started playing the sport in high school, converted baseball player. These kids grow up with the pill, they play the sport all in the playgrounds and everything. So it's really exciting to see the difference in skill level, how they all are able to spin the ball, even the forwards. It's really great.
Definitely. So they have that continuity of obviously playing with the ball early on in their lives, but it will like really kind of hone in a couple details, if you don't mind, of like of other people who may not get this opportunity, like what really separates other countries from the USA, and how can maybe we improve ourselves moving forward?
Really just they get the ball out so quick. They get the ball out wide, and that's their main goal is just play on the edges. And, in the first game versus the Thai, they really did spin the ball well, and they got a couple on us, so they definitely succeeded.
Definitely. So just kind of reining in and honing in those technical talents of not only ball movement, but just speed of the ball and getting it out as quick as you can. Great. Well,
yeah.
Clubs out there, take note from Charlie here. He's literally been there. He's been on the field and traded some dirt and some blood with these boys. So take his word for it. I know I am. But so Charlie, I'm going to kind of keep it with you for a little bit longer. What's been, I guess, if you could maybe talk a little bit about the non-rugby experiences that you guys have gone through in Ireland, and what are some of your favorite or highlights so far?
I'd have to say the experience with the Gaelic games is probably my favorite. Definitely hard getting the Gaelic or the hurling down. I'm not very good with the stick in hand stuff like that, or kicking really since I'm forward. But a lot of the guys enjoyed the Gaelic and handball, so it's really great. That's probably a lot of the guys have voted that as their best experience.
So what sport would you most compare it to over here in the States? Would it be like a hockey, field hockey? Like what? Because all I think is stick, and that's what I immediately think. But is there any other sports that might be closely to it?
Yeah, they were introducing it as a mix of field hockey, soccer, and a little bit of football with the field goal aspect. So yeah, that's how I would best describe it.
Cool. So Coach, if you don't mind me bringing it back to you, what are some of the unexpected things that go on a big tour like this? So I know you probably have team managers or volunteers that help out with equipment and traveling, and we could go on and down the list, but what are some maybe unexpected things or obstacles you've had to overcome that maybe could help out some other clubs in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question, Chris. To me, the biggest thing in planning the tour was to make sure that at all times we had engagement from the traveling party, so that guys didn't really feel like they were just passengers on our journey, over these three matches in 9 days, and that it really helped us and helped our process. So, for example, on match day, we treated that first match versus a Thai RFC as if it were like a D1A fixture that we would play, in that we dressed 23 players. Now, we brought over 33 players in total. 29 were fit, and 4 were carrying injury and unavailable for tour. So we had 6 players that weren't going to dress and were not going to play in that game. I think it was critical for me to really think of those players as like the glue to our tour and make sure that they fit involved. So the way I did that was I gave them each a role and something to focus on and work on. So one of the players focused on our performance analysis. So something I typically do, I gave him a distilled down version of it to work on during the match. So 5 areas, basically how we perform in the set piece, and also some areas around 22 entry and performance in the 22. So he tracked that during the match, and he could let us know at halftime, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Maybe we want to look at these changes. We also had someone as our social media manager, which was obviously quite fun to capture our entire trip in real time on Instagram and make it as creative and artistic as possible. So with roles like that, I helped. I think perhaps Charlie can speak to this, but I hope we tried to keep as much engagement with the group as possible.
Definitely. That's really cool, Coach, to kind of give responsibilities to the glue players, as you like to put it, and really keeping them within, the whole sphere of things, and not feeling like they're just, like you said, passengers on the vacation or whatever you might call it. But that's really cool, and it's really interesting to hear from a coach's perspective, because I'm sure, who knows, a few other clubs may be planning a trip like this, and just giving them that insight could really go the distance for them. But appreciate those words, Coach. So, and this is kind of opened up for both of you now. What's been your coolest experience so far? I know, Charlie, you had mentioned a little bit of the Gaelic, but what cultural things have you seen, historical landmarks, or anything that really surprised you about the trip that you'll most likely never forget?
One thing that I want to add is the rugby culture around here. After the game against the Galwegians, a couple of the members of the other team came in, and they came in with their kits. looking to trade some shorts, and I think you just can't find any other culture around it in any other sport.
Definitely. I bet you got some pretty sweet gear though in the trades. Well, Coach, what
I
would have
think
been some? Oh, sorry for interrupting. But what have been some good highlights for you, Coach?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off Charlie there, just the cultural component of being able to have a post-match function, where we have a meal and the players can mingle and talk, and the captains can present, the man of the match from the opposing team. I think to me that's critical in players forming relationships not only with their teammates but for the opposition as well. Now, the size of the United States, right, it affords us so many strengths, but in many ways it also has a lot of weaknesses. And one of them would be the travel distances that often our teams face, and sometimes to play league matches, right? For 2 years, I coached a team in the Red River in Texas Tech, and we would go on long trips. It would be 7 hours, 8 hours to get to Fayetteville, Arkansas, for example. We had some great games against them. I would have loved to have the opportunity to chop it up a bit with that opposition, but fortunately, the schedule doesn't really allow it when you have an 8-hour trip back. So I think here, because of the layout and the proximity, the guys got to see what it's like to play the match, come off the pitch, change, get some gear you want to trade, and then go in and have a meal together, which I think is quite special and sets rugby apart from other sports.
I couldn't agree with you more, Coach, 100%. And I know for those of the players or coaches who really haven't gotten that experience, like you'd mentioned, because of the diverse landscape of distance that we could travel between D1A clubs, for those who don't experience a post-match function where you sit down, you put on your number ones, so to speak, your suit and tie, you're looking good, and then after a nice shower, maybe have a beverage or two, but it's really more or less the bringing everyone together, like you had mentioned, not only kind of talking about each other individually, but collectively what this means for each club and really what you want to take away from it. But again, I couldn't agree with you more that that's such a really crucial aspect of the part of the game, and I'm really excited that you guys were able to experience that and really take that hopefully back to the East Coast and in D1A. And who knows, Fordham might be the new club that begins the post-match function and really starting a new trend and a new tradition, because I know I would love to see that. But anyway, so just kind of moving on, guys, what other cities have you been traveling to? I know you had mentioned a couple like Galway, but any other random little countrysides, towns, or big cities that you guys went to?
So we actually just stopped in Blarney today at the castle, and great experience, a diverse landscape, a big castle that I was not ready to experience the height of, and, all the different shrubs, ferns. It was great to experience.
And you said Blarney, right? BLAR. So
yes.
Is there the famous Blarney Stone there, or okay, good.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Blarney Stone.
Give the stone a kiss. That was great.
Yes. The BS, right, where it's just like, oh, you got a good Blarney Stone on you, which means you could kind of talk good shop. But anyway, that for those that don't know. So to kind of move on, what are some of the best and worst food that you guys have eaten on the trip so far?
Great question. I'll start with the best. We just came from a team function in downtown Cork, where we are presently, and this dessert that I had this evening was probably the best dessert I've ever had, and it was a banoffee pie. So it was a combination of banana and toffee. It's like so it's almost banana in like a light toffee that's over a crust with some cream. They served it in a wine glass. It was pretty next level. It was fancy. But it was great. So I think to me that's probably my number one so far.
To second that, I had the Bailey's cheesecake, and I would have to say 10 out of 10 for me on the tour.
Oh, you're making me so hungry right now. It's not even funny. So you're gonna have to give me the recipes, or at least find it on there, because those two sound so good. But yeah, any not so good dishes or things that you guys have tried? I mean, just of like a traveling perspective.
Probably today we stopped at a little supermarket after, and I had the fish and chips. Didn't leave a good feeling in my stomach. I guess I'll have to pass on that next time.
Okay.
I wouldn't say worse necessarily, but I would share I think that the States, the U.S. is still undefeated as far as breakfast is concerned, and I feel very strongly about that after having been fortunate to travel to quite a few countries. I think we consistently do breakfast better than anyone else, and that begins with iced coffee, for example, which tough to get in many places outside. Now you can make a nice espresso or iced coffee in their words, but it's not the same as going to like Dunkin' Donuts on the East Coast or Caribou out west or a Starbucks like that. And the breakfast foods as well. There's quite a few cereals and toasts, which is fine. But I think the boys were kind of looking around for like a sausage, egg, and cheese, perhaps, which we weren't able to get so far.
That's funny. That's on the other island. That's called the Full English. Yeah, it's across the pond. But but no, hopefully Ireland catches wind of this and really ups their breakfast game, because I know, like, you're right, Coach. Like, America pretty much is number one in food related categories. So, but yeah. So anyway, we've talked about a multitude of topics and a bunch of other things, but is there anything that Fordham University would like to speak to the rest of the D1A and collegiate world about your guys' experience, about your trips, and what other people and clubs can learn from?
You want to go?
You can.
I think this is something we've discussed a bit with the leadership group in the team, which Charlie is a member of, like, sort of our incoming new officers, for next year, and with the other coaches as well. Our assistant coach Ryan McTiernan and head coach Fetty Reinhardt, who both had to head back to the States a bit early, but were with us on tour. We, from a personal level, want to be known as trendsetters for sure. I think that's something that matters a great deal to us, but to the rugby community as a whole, you have great opportunities and resources to better yourselves as kind of players, coaches, officials, staff, and stewards of the game. And part of that is going abroad and experiencing it. Now, that can seem daunting from an organizational, standpoint or a financial standpoint as well. I think with the right amount of energy, any of those hurdles can be navigated. Because I know all those problems were present with us, but we navigated them all. So we would probably say, just get after it if it's something you want to pursue.
Definitely. Spoken like a true warrior, Coach, where there's a will, there's a way, right? And I know financials might be an obstacle in there, but again, there's nothing wrong with starting a savings account and really honing in your goals for the future as a club and really improving on that aspect. But again, hopefully, yes, you're right, Coach, that you are a trendsetter not only within your own university, but within the D1A scope of things and collegiate atmosphere. I know I'm going to be rooting for you guys to be on that train, being the leaders, and hopefully, seeing what kind of improvements are in store for you guys in the future after this trip as well. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you guys. If you have anything else to talk about, or even give some shout outs to some people back in the States, or shout outs to anyone in Ireland, please, the floor is yours before we wrap up here.
I'd just like to give a little quick shout out to my mom and dad for giving me the opportunity to come on this trip. It's been great.
Shout out mom and dad.
Definitely a couple of things, Chris, up with some notes that I wanted to share. First of all, in terms of like the thank yous, we were fortunate enough to have a great experience with Irish Rugby Tours, who looked after us immensely. So we're definitely appreciative of that. Andrew Giraldi is our director of rugby at Fordham and the Liberty Conference commissioner, and this really wasn't possible without his assistance. So I know the boys wanted to thank him. Just from my perspective, to the American rugby coaches as well that are looking, to be a bit challenged, I would encourage them, to find competition, whether that's domestically or internationally, that can challenge your game model. And this is really relevant to the teams that are successful and have been successful for a long time. We've had a game model now this year with Fordham where we want to play a certain style of defense and a certain style of attack that's reliant on, territory and specific kicking quite a bit, and not only kicking from 9 and 10, but from the centers and other backline members to put pressure on the opposition and put them in uncomfortable positions. Now, that was great in our planning, and then we went out and we had a match against the Galwegians, and we were forced to receive the ball and play into the stiffest wind that I had ever experienced in rugby. So right away, we found out that our game model, which we had discussed at length and played through in the fall, and prep for. It didn't work. We tried to box kick it from 9. We tried to exit from 10. The balls were coming back directly towards us, right? So we had to change what we did. And I think it was a great learning experience for the guys to figure out, all right, our model, what we wanted to do, doesn't exist right now because of these conditions. So how do we figure out something else to be successful? And I think sometimes in the States, we don't challenge ourselves enough. And we should always look to do that because I think the growth is immense.
Wow, that was pretty beautiful, Coach, and I really appreciate your in. No, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your bum here, but it was really cool to hear about the adaptation that you had to make, the obstacles you had to overcome, and completely flip the script on being or having a successful tour. Which you're right, a lot of other clubs in the States really need to step outside that comfort box and kind of get used to being uncomfortable in that sense and changing their ways and changing game plans, but. Hopefully they could hear this from you, take that, and then move forward with it. But yeah, thank you so much for the insight, Coach. Really appreciate it. And I had one last question before we sign off and say goodbye. But what did any of the Irish clubs, coaches, players tell you guys about American style of play? Like, was there compliments? Were they surprised? What was their feedback to you guys as being American players?
They said the main thing is just, like I said before, is just growing up with a pill, being able to throw it around in the backyard, in the playground, or anything like that. And they said the handling is the biggest thing that sets us apart, or sets Ireland apart, really. And just being able to throw the ball around willy-nilly, forwards, passing to 10s, stuff like that.
I think a couple of compliments they had, so I think we'll start there. They liked our kit to begin with. They were quite keen to get some of it, so they liked that. They were also intrigued that the coaches and the staff were mic'd up throughout the duration of our trainings and matches, which to us is a small detail about how we conduct our sessions and communicate. But they happen to think that was quite interesting. Whereas I suppose maybe they only see it at senior level or test level, but it's something we do to kind of get better at our craft. In terms of the game plan. There was a lot of feedback in terms of we expected you to basically just go forward and play American football style rugby, and you actually ended up being more skillful than anticipated. And I suppose there's somewhat of a slight in there / a compliment. I don't know if I've digested it entirely, and I'm sure other Americans abroad have gotten the same thing. But no, I suppose there is a compliment in there somewhere.
No, definitely, and I know Americans we have good banter, but the English and Southern Hemisphere countries have great banter. And sometimes you're right, a compliment may seem a little bit of a slight, but at the end of the day, you just got to take it on the cheek and kind of run away with it. But no, that's great insight again. Thank you, Coach. And I'm sure a lot of other clubs in the Americas or in the United States will take that and then go, oh, we're actually kind of catching up to these other countries instead of these other countries thinking that we're just a one-dimensional team or we kind of just play the boring style of American football, so to speak, and just using the big boys and not really being dynamic. But anyway, and I know we're kind of running in on time here, but again, if you guys have anything to say, any shout-outs, please, the floor is yours. But other than that, Phil, Charlie, it was an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for rescheduling, trying to get this interview down. I know the time difference is not really favorable, but again, really appreciate it from our end, and thank you so much for your time.
All the best, Chris. Thank you very much.
All right, and enjoy the rest of your trip, guys. For those of you watching, thank you for joining us. And please, I forgot, I'm going to plug in Fordham University links here at the bottom, whether your websites, Facebook, social media pages, all that good stuff. If you're interested in playing for Fordham University, please go check it out. Contact Coach here, contact Charlie. They're good guys. They're good blokes. They'll send you in the right direction and get you set and forward to go to Fordham. But again, thank you so much, gentlemen. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we could do this again sometime.
Cheers. All the best.
All right. Thank you, guys.